First off, Amy Hunter, Global Head of Sustainability for BlackRock, a multinational investment management company that is using its massive heft and influence to move entire markets and industries toward greater sustainability. Tony Tolentino, he leads global philanthropy for financial services giant JP Chase, which has set an eye-popping target of $2.5 trillion over 10 years to facilitate and invest in sustainability. Ken Jenkins is the Chief Water Resource Sustainability Officer for California Water Service, the third largest investor-owned, publicly traded water utility in the country, and a leading force in bringing sustainability to bear in the management of one of our most precious resources. And to lead the conversation, Diana Burkett Rocco. Diana is the Senior Vice President for Public Affairs and Sustainability for Alaska Airlines, which is transforming the airline industry to address climate change. Thank you very much to our panel.
And I'll just start off by saying, I know that Jim likes to run a tight ship, but he has asked us to cover one of the most profound, huge, and intractable issues, sustainability, in 30 minutes. So think of this as a bit of a tasting flight. We will try, however, to make it practical, because we'd love for folks to come away with some ideas that you can put to work in your business as soon as today and tomorrow. So to kick us off, sustainability is a really big topic. So we're just going to run down the line and ask folks, and I'll chime in on this one too, but what does it mean to you? How do you focus, and what's the goal of what does sustainability mean to you, and what's your end goal? And maybe we'll start with you, Amy.
Sure. So I'm going to answer that question from two perspectives. On the BlackRock's business side, I'd say, BlackRock's conviction is that sustainable investing can't be ignored. Clients seek deeper knowledge about the markets, sustainable investment options, data and reporting to help them make decisions, or better decisions, and increased commitment to integration of sustainability into the investment process. And BlackRock believes that what we're all sort of facing now is that portfolios that include investments linked to transition to a decarbonized economy are likely to add returns over time as the transition accelerates and becomes more fully priced. And then I guess the question is, why care? For BlackRock, most of our clients are in this for the long term, and any assets held for the long term are going to face a lot of risks and opportunities related to climate. And helping clients sort of position their portfolios to be more resilient to those risks and seize those opportunities and strive for long-term returns is really what the company's all about. And the end goal, following your agenda here, is really to help clients get exposure to this transition, which BlackRock identifies as having sort of three drivers: technology, societal preferences, and climate policy, and is really here to help manage what's certainly going to be a pretty bumpy road as these three things evolve. And so that's sort of the business side of it. I sit on the corporate side, and I'm responsible for building BlackRock's own strategy for sustainability. And part of that is to build a program that reflects the ethos of the company and can really enable us to operate with as low an impact on the environment as possible. And part of that, and this is kind of the neat part of it, is identifying new technologies that are going to enable us to do that, and support them early and help them scale so that they'll become more accessible to everyone.
Great, thank you. So I should note, too, that I am 2 months into my role at JP Chase, so they told me, go and participate in this. So don't hold me accountable to any numbers I may put out here. But and one of the reasons I joined JP Chase was their actual commitment and tangible commitment to building a more sustainable and inclusive economy. So they approach it in various ways when we work with our clients, we work with our communities, and we work with our employees to ensure that that's happening across our businesses. And in my role within global philanthropy, I actually manage the grant-making portfolio for Northern California and the San Francisco Bay Area. There is a sustainable lens that we have placed onto our grant-making here in the region. And that's really a testament to JP Morgan Chase, too, that gives us the flexibility as local leaders to really respond here in the region to what's happening on the ground and what's most relevant to all of us here. So when it comes to issues of sustainability, when it comes to issues of climate change, they really allow us to make decisions here on the ground and invest. Well, I shouldn't say invest when it comes to grant making, but provide funding for organizations and programs that are really tackling these bigger issues in sustainability. I mean, obviously here in Northern California, we see the effects of climate change very easily. I mean, we're literally sitting on San Francisco Bay, when it comes to rising sea levels, when it comes to wildfires and seeing those effects there. So JP Morgan Chase, very much believes in giving us the flexibility within my group to really help address those challenges here at a local level. I think in terms of like the end game for the company, we very much believe in a carbon having a lower carbon and sustainable economy for the country and for the world, and in doing that in various ways, whether it be in our business side or, like I said, in our philanthropic efforts.
So I'll give you one sentence to start, and I would say that for us, sustainability really is doing the right thing for people on the planet, and then managing our business with integrity and ethics. So I think that kind of summarizes it. But what does that really mean, right? If we're doing that, we believe we're investing in long-term sustainability of our business, and then we're able to deliver on our purpose, which is really enhancing the quality of life of the communities and people that we serve. How do we do that? We focus on customers, we focus on the 100+ communities that we serve, we focus on our employees, and we focus on the environment. As a water supplier, we have a unique connection to the environment. And I think one of the best examples of this is our water conservation program. We've long had a commitment to sustainability before we were having panels on sustainability. Our water conservation program, in the last 20 years, we've reduced per capita water consumption by 30%. What does that do? Right, in and of itself, that's a great thing, but it has larger benefits beyond just that in and of itself. And it allows our communities to grow. It reduces energy consumption by not having to pump and move that water, and ultimately reduces emissions. And so I would encourage people, as you're looking at sustainability, look at multi-benefits of what you're doing. This is not something that we do, it's part of who we are. You need to embrace that as part of your culture to be successful. If we do that, we're able then to attract high-quality employees. We're able to attract investors. We're able to ensure that we are, we're fulfilling our purpose of, being part of our communities and delivering an essential service to those communities. So that's kind of where we are.
Thanks. As you all were talking, and Amy, you sort of started here, there's the side of thinking about sustainability from a systems and infrastructure standpoint, and then there's the side of it thinking about the direct impact that your business has on the environment. And you guys have both. I think Ken and I more represent the direct impact, but there's some systems issues as well. At Alaska, we burn fuel in airplanes. You kind of can't get away from the environmental benefit. And we believe very deeply in the economic benefit and sort of human connectedness benefit of aviation. So the question is, how do we do it better over time? And the end goal for us actually is similarly, I think, long-term value. It's long-term value not just though for owners, it's also for communities, for our employees, and for those who fly with us. And one of the challenges that we've thought through is sort of this question of breadth versus depth. There are so many issues that we could work on that relate to sustainability that fall under the umbrella of your first sentence. And so we've prioritized racial equity on the and DEI on the human side, and carbon emissions, and achieving a goal of net zero by 2040 on the environmental side. But also, for example, on the environmental side, we have goals for waste and water, which aren't thought about quite as top of mind sometimes for aviation. So, and we rely on a ton of different partners because we've got a path to get to net zero, and a lot of it depends on some technology that isn't totally advanced yet. So, including a new company we just partnered with over in the North Bay called 12, which actually creates sustainable aviation fuel from recaptured CO2 and renewable energy and water. And there's a lot of things that we can get off the ground if we work together. So, Amy, just to go back to you, one of the things that I learned in just preparing for the panel is that you, while we think of BlackRock as an enormous organization that is pushing systems change, you have a very small team thinking about, if not just yourself, on the corporate side. And so I'd love your perspective on how do you right size and prioritize to focus and make change in a topic that's this big?
Yeah, I think it's sort of counterintuitive that from an environmental impact perspective, BlackRock's actually really small. We're a string of offices and a few data centers around the world. It's counterintuitive because, we've got a pretty influential voice and often a well-known point of view, particularly on climate. So both these factors really figured into how, when I started this program 5 years ago, how I'd set it up. I wanted it to reflect the ethos of the firm, but I also wanted it to be really effective. And as Dinah mentioned, I'm one person. So the approach was designed to be simple, replicable, and in many instances, low cost or no cost. And, I will confess that, for the first 5 years I was alone, but as of 3 weeks ago, there's a new member of the team. So now we are effectively a team. And so how I went about it was, you sort of measure your carbon footprint, see where your biggest emissions categories are, and then set to work. For BlackRock, we recently reset new targets. We set 3 of them. 2 of them are in our operations. One is to reduce emissions associated with energy by 2/3 by 2030, and the other to reduce our travel-related emissions by a little under half, 50% by 2030. And how we're going to do that is pretty clear, and I'm just going to tell you sort of the high-level stuff now so that you can see that it's actually pretty easy to do. For the first one, we committed to 100% renewable energy. That's important because it's a zero emissions energy. And really what I did was I contacted every office where we actually have an account with a local utility company, called them up and switched the energy to renewable. And that covered 50% of our load. So that was sort of a slam dunk right there. And the other half we cover, it's because, if our landlord controls the energy procurement and we can't, we cover that brown energy with new renewable energy through the purchase of renewable energy certificates. And that's sort of the, an ongoing process till we get to 100%. Our second target on travel, we've, we are a firm that's committed to travel, so there was no way I could go to the management and say, sustainability says you've got to not let people fly anymore.
Thank you.
The firm really believes in relationship building and meeting with our clients and talking to them. So we leverage sustainable aviation fuel. I'm really looking forward to learning about 12. I don't know anything about it. But it is fondly known as SAF in our world, and it's a new, sort of the leading decarbonization technology in aviation. And we're supporting it early. It's expensive, it's of limited supply, but we feel like it's the right place to be, and it's a large source of emissions for us, and we want to be there. Our third commitment is it costs nothing, and that's an engagement commitment with our suppliers. We're working with the suppliers that represent about 2/3 of the emissions in that category, and hoping to convince them to also set emission targets similar to ours if they haven't already done so. And just to put that in perspective, that's our top 100 suppliers, so it's an eminently doable goal. And I think, I think the takeaway that I'd really like to share here is that there's no reason really not to get started. It doesn't take an army of people to get a program up and going and get it pretty far down the road, as I've been able to do at BlackRock. And the second thing is, it doesn't really have to cost that much money. And when you're evaluating the costs, I think it's important to think about the value of that expenditure to your key stakeholders, your customers, your clients, your employees, and balance that against the cost of not doing anything. And factor in that regulations are coming down the pike. There's likely going to be carbon taxes right after that. And depending where you operate in the world, there are going to be fines. And I think if you sort of do that analysis and evaluate those choices, reducing your emissions is usually going to win. And luckily for me, that's been the case. And as a result, I have a very cool job.
Thanks, Amy. All right, Tony, and I'm going to ask you guys to be a little bit brief, but you touched on this at the beginning, on JP Morgan's focus on equity. Sustainability is often affiliated with environmental issues, but it can also mean social sustainability, and the two are connected. How is JP Morgan focused on that?
Wonderful. Yes, and I'll be as brief as possible. So they're interconnected, basically, sustainability and equity. So actually, in October of 2020, J.P. Morgan Chase made a $30 billion commitment, a racial equity commitment, to Black and Latino communities in the United States to really help close the racial wealth gap. So it's front and center in terms of what we do. And I think, when it comes to the global philanthropy piece and in terms of where I operate, it's very apparent that the effects of climate change and whatnot, communities of color, low-income communities, they feel the direct impact of that far earlier and much more directly than many other communities. So investing in those communities and really lifting up those communities and leaders within those communities to help solve their, the issues that they're facing is paramount to what we're doing at JP Morgan Chase. One other example that just to call out, actually, is in partnership with the Bay Area Council, the California Resiliency Challenge. So JP Morgan Chase is one of the largest supporters of that challenge over the past couple years, and it's really a matter of trying to identify projects throughout California that are building resiliency in their communities to address a variety of challenges that they're facing. But one important aspect of that, and this goes to the equity piece, is we have an advisory committee each year made up of local leaders, leaders of nonprofits, community leaders, that help assess and choose these projects. It's not JP Morgan Chase or the other corporate partners who are sponsoring this. We're letting the community really take the lead, and these leaders take the lead in terms of identifying these projects. So in terms of equity, it's really a matter of giving these individuals and these leaders the voice to help address and identify the issues in their communities.
That's a great example. Thanks, Tony. All right, Ken, last one's for you. How are you seeing technology and new solutions and investment accelerate our progress?
Yeah, I'll briefly touch on three pieces of this. First is on the water supply side. We've all seen typical recycled purple pipe projects. That's one piece of it. But as we look at indirect potable reuse, injecting water back into basins, into other sources, and reusing that water, new regulations are coming out in the next year on direct potable reuse, so being able to treat that wastewater to a drinking water standard and utilize that for drinking water purposes. These are all technologies that continue to evolve, and we've made a commitment to increase our use of recycled water as part of our operations and the supply that we serve to our customers. Second piece, I would say, is going back to the conservation piece. And technology continues to improve in that space. I would imagine that most of you don't think of technology when you think of your shower head or your toilet, but we do. It's what we do. As I see shower heads coming down from very high flow rates, 2.5 gallon per minute, down to 1.5 gallon per minute that are very usable. Toilets coming down from the old days of 5 to 7 gallons per flush, and now we're looking at toilets that are less than a gallon per flush. We participate in research in this space and are utilizing this technology to provide to our customers to help reduce water use and contribute to those reductions I talked about before. And the last piece I talk about is climate change, and that's a driver of all of these things, right? We just completed, the end of last year, we completed a very extensive risk assessment of all of our facilities, all of our assets, all of our operations. And it is clear that this is a driver. And if you're not looking at climate change seriously and determining where you need to focus, you're already behind. And so I would encourage everyone to really take a hard look at what are those impacts and how do you get ahead of those impacts, because that's going to be critically important.
Thank you. All right, well, a couple takeaways I got. Start somewhere and don't wait. Partner for local solutions. And I love the technology examples. Technology can be simple or complex, and we need all of it. Thank you all for your leadership.